These are some of the last remaining vials of what was a life-changing drug, a made-in-Canada medical breakthrough called Glybera. It was the world's first gene therapy, the first drug on the market that could fix a faulty gene. It offered new hope for people who suffer from a rare and potentially deadly genetic disorder.
It was a turning point in my life.
Cynthia Turcotte was born with a genetic mutation called lipoprotein lipase deficiency, or LPLD. Her blood becomes thick with fat particles, triggering painful and dangerous attacks of pancreatitis. There was no treatment before Glybera, but after just 2 years on the market, Glybera is gone.
How did you feel about that?
Disappointed, of course. I would like to have seen this go all the way and seen this bring benefit to patients everywhere in the world.
But it didn't. This is the story of an unsung Canadian scientific achievement, a world first, ultimately defeated by the harsh realities of the pharmaceutical industry. The Glybera story started more than 30 years ago in a publicly funded laboratory at the University of British Columbia. In the early days of gene research, Dr. Michael Hayden was a pioneer, determined to find a cure for patients suffering unbearable abdominal pain.
Each time going back to the patient and hearing their stories, that just keeps you going. You just have to go to a clinic and hear what the patient tells you about the episode of abdominal pain. They couldn't have a single normal meal in their lives.
In a healthy person, the LPL protein breaks down dietary fat into small particles so it can be used to fuel the body's activities. But about 3 out of every million people are born with a defective LPL gene. The fat doesn't break down, and their blood becomes so thick it turns white. So it comes out of the body looking like that?
Yep.
It does come out of the body, but you see it better if you have it standing in a fridge overnight. And then what sits on top looks like cream. White as cream and white as the fridge itself.
John Castellan was a young doctor from Amsterdam when he first joined Hayden's team in the late 1980s. Hayden's first assignment for Castellan? To find the gene that makes the LPL protein. It wasn't going to be easy.
At the time, the techniques for then finding the gene that belongs to the protein were in its infancy.
It took 2 years, but they found it, using the DNA of a patient who had a severe mutation.
We found, indeed, in a gene, a big fault, actually a hole. There was a whole hole in the gene.
This was a very happy
and
special day,
yeah.
And we knew we had something.
A good day.
Their eureka moment was captured in this photograph.
Everybody was really thrilled. We knew we had it at that moment.
Now that they'd found the defective gene, could they fix it?
I have to give all the credit to Michael. He started to think about gene therapy.
We know they've got a defective gene. The one way to treat this would be to replace the gene. I mean, it was a fairly simple concept. But the problem is, how do you deliver that gene and how do you get it into the blood?
They decided to use a harmless virus, specially designed to deliver the new gene into the body. The first tests were in mice. The stunning results made the cover of this medical journal, showing how day by day, the white, fat-laden blood turned red.
That was an amazing moment, and you just saw it. When you withdrew blood, and the first, it's like milk. And then you take it a week later, it's lighter. You take it a week later, it's lighter. You take it 8 weeks later, and it's completely clear. We've got it. You knew you had it then.
Then, through sheer luck, the UBC team found the same genetic mutation in a colony of cats from New Zealand. When the drug cured the cats, it was time to test it on humans. But that takes lots of money. It's called the Valley of Death. That moment when a scientific discovery makes the treacherous journey from the lab to the marketplace. That's when the investors, the business experts, and the marketing specialists step in to pay for clinical trials, manufacturing, and licensing costs. It's the only way a scientific discovery ever gets to patients, because universities don't make drugs. So Castellan returned to Amsterdam and formed a drug company to develop the treatment that would be called Glybera.
So we took over all the science, the mice science, the cat science, the virus science.
Back in Vancouver, Hayden's team continued to provide lab support for the Dutch company, and in Holland, the first clinical trials were an immediate success.
Within an hour, all the patients could walk and they never had any side effects at all from the therapy.
But to get government approval, they needed more human trials. So they returned to the one place in the world with the highest prevalence of the disease, and that's here in Canada, along Quebec's Saguenay River. At a special lipid clinic in Chicoutimi, doctors began testing Glybera on LPLD patients who live in the area, where a gene mutation from a single ancestor has been passed down through the generations. Cynthia Turcotte's parents both carried the mutation, but they didn't know it until their infant daughter almost died.
I was 8 months old and I had some pain and I was vomiting and my mother was very panicking. We saw that in the blood sample there was some part was white, like cream, and was like, oh, and they panicked. They said to my mother I had 24 hours to live.
The doctors saved her life by starving her until her fat levels dropped. But she was told she could never eat chocolate or ice cream or hot dogs or milk, and forget about beer or wine and a normal social life. The worst part was when she was told she could never have children.
I was in shock. I was grieving. I had to go to I'm a psychologist, I have to go to psychotherapy to deal with it.
Then at 22, she was stricken with a dreaded attack of pancreatitis. When she heard about the clinical trials happening in Chicoutimi, Turcotte immediately volunteered.
So I said, yeah, I want to go there, I want to have it.
Turcotte had no way of knowing then that she would be one of the few patients in the world ever to receive the life-changing drug. Back in Amsterdam, the drug company spent years trying to convince Europe's health regulators to approve it.
There was a lot of fighting and the politics very unpleasant.
Over the years it took to win that approval, the company lost millions. It was liquidated. A new company took over, called Unicure. It partnered with an Italian firm to finally get Glybera on the market. When the drug went on sale, it made headlines, because not only was it the world's first gene therapy, it had also become the world's most expensive drug. The price, around $1 million for the one-time treatment. Did they tell you how much they were going to charge?
No. I learned that first from reading about it as it became public. No, I did not know what they were going to charge.
Back in Vancouver, Hayden was not involved with the new company. He and UBC had signed over their patents long ago and moved on to other research. Hayden would get no money from the sale of Glybera, and he had nothing to do with setting the price.
To be quite frank, this was not something I was particularly proud of, that the pricing of this made this out of the reach of the very patients, and the whole motivation for doing this was to have this available for patients.
The problem is also that people like me and Michael, we never have anything to say about pricing. You know, by the time that there's a pricing, we're gone already, because we've done the science and the clinical work and everything, and then it's the commercial and the financial people who determine the price.
Why did Glybera cost so much? A Unicure official told us the $1 million price was based on a business calculation. Because other drugs for rare diseases can cost several $100,000 a year, every year, for life. By comparison, Glybera, with a one-time cost of $1 million, seemed reasonable, especially since it was the only drug that could treat LPLD.
And for that price, obviously it was almost impossible to sell it.
In the end, there was only one customer. A German doctor prescribed it for this woman. It changed her life and stopped the potentially deadly pancreatitis attacks. With no other customers, Glybera was abandoned last fall. 3 remaining doses were given away for the bargain price of €1 each. Added up, the drug was given to only 31 people in the entire world, most treated free in the clinical trials. Cynthia Turcotte is thrilled to be one of them. Because of Glybera, she was able to have 2 healthy children. Unicure officials told us there are no plans to revive Glybera or to apply for license in the U.S. or Canada.
I have a hard time understanding why you're not angry that this drug that you developed didn't get used.
I think I was angry at the time, but because this has taken so long, it kind of wears you out in a way.
For the scientists, the discovery of Glybera is still a career highlight, an historic Canadian achievement that beat the odds.
It did work, absolutely, yeah. So the patients that got it are still very happy.
But in the harsh reality of the drug business, that's not enough. Kelly Crow, CBC News, Toronto.